The police report said nothing unusual happened that night. But I know that's a lie, because at 2:17 a.m., something knocked on my bedroom door from the inside. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stared at the thin strip of light under the door as the sound came again. Slow, deliberate, like whoever was on the other side knew I was awake and was enjoying the wait. The kind of knock that isn't asking to be let in. The kind that's reminding you it's already there. That was the moment I realized I shouldn't have been alone. And if you're listening to this by yourself right now, you might want to reconsider. Because these aren't campfire stories. They're not urban legends passed around online. These are the kinds of stories people whisper about years later, lowering their voices even when no one else is in the room. The kind that start normal, boring, even, and end with questions that never get answered. Every story you're about to hear has one thing in common. The people involved thought they were safe. They thought night was just another part of the day. They thought being alone meant peace and quiet. They were wrong. The first story starts in a place so ordinary you've probably been there 100 times. A quiet room late at night, lights off, phone glowing in the dark. The kind of night where nothing happens. Until something does. Something small at first. Easy to explain away. A sound. A shadow. A feeling that creeps in slowly, like cold air under a door. The second story comes from someone who did everything right. Doors locked. Windows closed. No reason to feel afraid. And yet, fear found them anyway, because sometimes it doesn't matter how careful you are. Sometimes the problem isn't outside. Sometimes it's already sharing the space with you. Learning your habits. Memorizing when you're most vulnerable. And the third one is the reason I can't sleep with my door closed anymore. What makes these stories terrifying isn't blood or monsters or anything you can clearly see. It's the waiting. The uncertainty. The moment when your brain is screaming that something is wrong, but you don't have proof yet. The moment when you're deciding whether to turn on the light, knowing that whatever made you afraid might not disappear when you do. People like to believe fear needs a reason, a face, a name. But real fear doesn't announce itself. It settles into the room with you. It changes the way silence sounds. It makes familiar places feel wrong. Like you've stepped into a version of your life that's slightly off. And once that feeling starts, it doesn't stop just because the night ends. The worst part? Every person in these stories survived. They walked away. They told themselves it was over. But none of them were ever able to explain exactly what they encountered. Or why, even now years later, they still check behind doors, still flinch at soft sounds in the dark, still feel watched when they're completely alone. If you're expecting answers, you won't find them here. If you're looking for comfort, this is the wrong place. These are the kinds of stories that don't end when the video does. They follow you into the silence after. Into the moment when you turn off your screen. Into the second when your room goes dark and you're left alone with your thoughts. So before we continue, ask yourself one thing. Are you absolutely sure you're alone right now? Before any of this happened, my life was painfully ordinary. I'm a regular guy in my late 20s, working a remote job that mostly involves staring at a screen for too many hours a day. Nothing exciting, nothing dangerous. On weeknights, I usually stayed in, ordered takeout, watched whatever series everyone was talking about, and went to bed later than I should have. That night was no different. It was a weekday, Tuesday I think, and the kind of quiet night that feels almost comforting. I was alone in my apartment, a small one-bedroom place on the third floor of an older building. Not old enough to be creepy, just old enough to have thin walls and floors that sometimes made noise when the temperature changed. I'd lived there for nearly a year, long enough to know its sounds. The hum of the refrigerator, the occasional clunk from the pipes, the distant traffic outside that faded into background noise after midnight. The clock on my phone said 1:43 a.m. I wasn't tired yet, but I was relaxed. I turned off the main lights and left only a small lamp on in the living room. The kind of soft yellow glow that makes everything feel calm and safe. The curtains were drawn. The door was locked. I remember checking it earlier without even thinking about it, just habit. I was stretched out on the couch, half watching a show I'd already seen before, scrolling on my phone and letting my mind wander. No stress. No fear. Just that peaceful, slightly numb feeling you get late at night when the world feels far away and nothing is expected of you until morning. That's why the quiet felt so normal. People like to talk about how silence can be scary, but that night it wasn't. It was familiar. Comforting. The kind of silence that makes you feel like you're completely alone in a good way. Like nothing can reach you. Like the night is yours. I remember thinking how nice it was not to hear anything. No neighbors arguing. No music through the walls. No footsteps in the hallway. Just me, the soft glow of the lamp, and the steady rhythm of my own breathing. Eventually, I muted the TV and set my phone down. My eyes were starting to feel heavy, and I figured I'd head to bed soon. I stood up, stretched, and walked through the apartment, turning off the lights as I went. The bedroom felt just as calm. Neatly made bed, clean floor. Door slightly open like I always left it. I didn't check the closet. I didn't check under the bed. There was no reason to. I lay down, pulled the blanket up, and stared at the ceiling for a moment, listening to the building settle around me. Everything felt exactly the way it was supposed to feel. Safe, familiar, predictable. My thoughts drifted to normal things: work in the morning, what I'd make for dinner the next day, whether I should start going to bed earlier. Nothing dark. Nothing unsettling. If you'd asked me in that moment if I felt afraid, I would have laughed. I was home. I was alone. And I felt completely safe. That's what makes it so easy to miss the moment when safety starts to slip away. I don't know exactly when the feeling started, only that it crept in so slowly I almost ignored it. At first, it was just a sound. So quiet I wasn't even sure I'd heard it. A faint creak somewhere in the apartment, like wood shifting under a little too much weight. I told myself it was the building settling. It happened all the time. Still, I opened my eyes and listened, holding my breath without realizing it. Nothing followed. I rolled onto my side and tried to get comfortable, but my body felt oddly alert, like I'd had too much caffeine. My eyes kept drifting to the bedroom doorway, the dark hallway beyond it barely visible in the low light. I hadn't turned on a night lamp. I never did. The darkness was normal. Another sound came a minute later. This time it was softer. A faint rustle, almost like fabric brushing against a wall. It was brief, gone before I could place it. My brain immediately reached for explanations: air moving through the vents, maybe. A neighbor shifting furniture. Old buildings make weird noises at night. I closed my eyes again. That's when the room felt different. Not colder. Not hotter. Just heavier somehow. Like the air had thickened enough that I could feel it pressing against my chest. I shifted under the blanket, suddenly uncomfortable, and became painfully aware of how quiet everything had become. Even the distant traffic noise seemed muted, as if the world outside had stepped away. I opened my eyes again and stared at the doorway. I couldn't shake the sensation that I was being observed. Not watched openly, no obvious presence, but noticed. Like when you suddenly realize someone is staring at you from across a room, and you don't know how long they've been doing it. I told myself I was being ridiculous. To prove it, I reached for my phone and checked the time. 2:04 a.m. The screen lit up the room for a second, casting familiar shapes across the walls. Nothing had changed. The doorway was still empty. The hallway still dark. But when the light faded, the shadows seemed deeper than before. I listened again. That's when I noticed something subtle but wrong. The refrigerator hum I was used to hearing had stopped. The pipes were silent. Even the faint ticking sound I'd never been able to locate was gone. The apartment felt sealed off from the rest of the building, like I was inside a box. A soft sound broke the silence. Tap. It came from somewhere near the hallway. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just a single gentle noise, like a fingernail lightly touching wood. My stomach tightened, but I didn't move. I waited for it to happen again, already preparing the explanation in my head. Seconds passed. Then another sound, different this time. A slow, dragging noise like something brushing along the wall. It lasted only a moment, but it was enough to make my skin prickle. I sat up slightly, heart beating faster now, listening harder than I ever had before. Still, nothing clearly dangerous had happened. No footsteps. No voices. No reason to panic. And yet, I couldn't shake the sense that the apartment wasn't empty in the way it had been earlier. The darkness felt occupied, as if it held more than just shadows. I found myself staring at corners of the room, at the space behind the door, half expecting something to move. I considered turning on the light. The thought brought an odd hesitation, like part of me was afraid of what the light might reveal, or worse, what it wouldn't. So I stayed still, listening to the quiet, trying to convince myself that the unease was just my imagination. But deep down, I already knew something had changed. The moment I sat up in bed, the apartment changed. It wasn't subtle this time. The air dropped heavy and cold, pressing down on my chest like a physical weight. My breath came out shallow, each inhale feeling harder than the last. The quiet I'd been listening to wasn't just silence anymore. It felt deliberate, like something had cut the sound off on purpose. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood. The floor was icy beneath my feet. That's when I heard it again. A sound from the hallway, slow, wet, and unmistakably deliberate. Not a scrape. Not a creak. A step. My heart slammed so hard it made me dizzy. Someone was in my apartment. I took one cautious step toward the doorway, my body screaming at me to turn on the light, to shout, to do something. But my hands wouldn't move. Every instinct in me was focused on one terrible truth. Whatever was out there wasn't trying to hide anymore. Another step. Closer. The darkness in the hallway seemed to deepen, folding in on itself. The faint outline of the doorframe warped, as if the shadows were stretching inward. My throat tightened, and I suddenly understood how prey must feel when it realizes it's already been cornered. Hello. My voice cracked the moment it left my mouth. The word barely traveled before it was swallowed by the air. Something shifted in response. Not a sound movement. A shape began to separate itself from the darkness, peeling forward like a shadow learning how to stand. It was tall, too tall, and thin in a way that made my stomach turn. Its limbs bent at wrong angles, joints moving with slow, grinding clicks that echoed through the hallway. The air grew thicker with every inch it came closer. I could smell it now, something stale and metallic like damp walls and old blood. My eyes burned, tears blurring my vision as the shape leaned forward. Just enough for the dim moonlight to touch its face. If it had a face. Its skin looked stretched and pale, pulled tight over a skull that was too long, too narrow. Where its eyes should have been, there were dark, hollow pits that reflected just enough light to let me know they were focused on me. Not staring. Studying. My legs refused to move. The thing took another step, and the floor creaked under its weight. With that sound came a sudden crushing realization. This wasn't a dream. I wasn't imagining things. And whatever stood in my hallway wasn't bound by the rules I understood. This was real. The temperature dropped sharply, my breath fogging in front of my face. My ears rang as pressure built. Like the moment before your ears pop at high altitude. The apartment felt smaller now, walls closing in as if the space itself was reacting to the presence of the thing inside it. It tilted its head. Slow. Curious. Its mouth opened, jaw stretching far wider than it should have been, and it exhaled. The sound wasn't loud, but it was wrong, long and uneven, like air being dragged through something hollow. The breath brushed against my skin, and every muscle in my body locked in terror. It wasn't just in my apartment. It was aware of me. I staggered backward, bumping into the bed, nearly falling. The movement broke whatever spell had frozen me, and panic flooded in so fast it made my hands shake violently. The thing reacted instantly. Its posture shifted, shoulders rolling forward as if preparing to move. The shadows around it pulsed, crawling along the walls toward me like living veins of darkness. That's when I understood the truth. This wasn't a burglar. Wasn't a person. Wasn't even something that had followed me inside. It had been here before I ever moved in. And now that it knew I could see it, there was only one thing left for it to do. Come closer. And suddenly, standing still felt like a death sentence. I ran. Not because I had a plan, but because staying still felt like dying. The moment my feet hit the floor, the thing moved. Fast. Not charging. Not sprinting. Gliding. Like it didn't need friction to move through space. I bolted out of the bedroom, heart detonating in my chest, lungs burning as panic slammed into me full force. The hallway lights flickered as I passed, buzzing violently, plunging the apartment into a stuttering rhythm of light and dark. Behind me a sound. Bones shifting. Wet. Close. Too close. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Every instinct screamed that the second I turned around, I'd lose whatever thin advantage I still had. My bare feet slapped against the floor as I stumbled toward the living room, nearly tripping over the coffee table. The front door. I just had to reach the front door. My fingers grazed the handle, and the lights went out. Complete darkness. The apartment felt like it vanished around me. replaced by something smaller, tighter, breathing down my neck. A cold pressure slammed into my back. Not a hit but a presence, forcing the air out of my lungs. I screamed. The sound came out broken, strangled. I twisted away and felt something brush my arm, cold, slick, wrong. My skin burned where it touched me, like frostbite mixed with electricity. I staggered sideways and fell, crashing into the wall hard enough to rattle my teeth. The thing loomed in front of me, a darker shape inside the darkness, unfolding upward until it nearly brushed the ceiling. It blocked the door. Of course it did. My pulse roared in my ears as adrenaline hijacked my body. My eyes darted wildly, searching for anything that wasn't death. The bathroom. I scrambled to my feet and sprinted down the short hallway, slipping once, barely catching myself on the wall. The thing followed, but not directly behind me. It was faster than me. It knew where I was going. The bathroom light flicked on as I slammed inside and locked the door, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the lock. I backed into the corner, chest heaving, ears straining. Silence. For half a second I let myself believe I'd bought time. Then, a slow scrape on the other side of the door. Not scratching. Not pounding. Dragging. Like fingers being pulled down the wood on purpose. The handle twisted. Once. Twice. I backed up until my shoulders hit the tile wall. My heart felt like it might explode. The mirror above the sink began to vibrate, a low hum filling the room as the air grew colder and colder. Cracks spidered across the glass. The lights flickered. The door bulged inward slightly, as if something was leaning against it, testing it. I spotted the window. Small. Frosted. Over the bathtub. Too high. I didn't think. I jumped, slipping on the porcelain, smashing my elbow painfully as I grabbed the sill. Pain shot up my arm but fear drowned it out. The door creaked. The lock began to bend. I hauled myself up, glass biting into my palms as the window screeched open. Cold night air flooded in, shocking my lungs. I wedged one leg through, then the other, just as the bathroom door cracked open with a splintering snap. Something hissed behind me. Angry. I fell. Hit the ground hard. The impact knocked the breath out of me, stars exploding behind my eyes. I rolled, gasping, scrambling to my feet as the apartment window behind me darkened. Something watched from inside. I ran again down the sidewalk, barefoot, bleeding, sobbing, toward the glow of streetlights and parked cars and people. My legs felt like rubber, but I didn't stop until my chest felt like it would tear itself apart. I didn't slow until I reached the end of the block. Only then did I dare to look back. The apartment building stood silent. Normal. Dark. But in the bathroom window, just for a second, I saw movement. And I knew with terrifying certainty that escape didn't mean I was safe. Just meant I was still alive. I didn't go back inside that night. I stood under a flickering streetlight, barefoot on cold concrete, shaking so hard my teeth wouldn't stop chattering. A neighbor had come out after hearing the noise. Asked if I was okay, if I needed help. I don't remember what I said. Something incoherent. Something about a break-in. About being scared. They wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and called the police. For a few minutes I felt safe. That's the dangerous thing about light and people and sirens, you start believing they can protect you from anything. The police arrived quickly. 2 officers. Calm voices. Flashlights cutting through the dark as they walked me back toward the building. Every step closer made my stomach twist. The apartment looked exactly the same as it always had. Windows dark, door closed. No signs of a struggle. Too normal. They went inside first. I stayed outside, blanket clutched tight around me, listening to their boots move across the floor. Cabinets opening. Closet doors sliding. The bathroom window, my escape, was still open. Nothing here, one officer finally said. No signs of forced entry. I tried to explain. About the thing. About how it moved. How it felt. They exchanged a look. Concerned. But not convinced. They checked the bathroom last. The mirror was intact. No cracks. No vibration. No marks on the door. The lock wasn't bent. The wood wasn't splintered. Nothing. They asked if I'd been drinking. If I was under stress. If I'd taken anything. I said no. Because it was the truth. After a while they left. Told me to call if I remembered anything else. Gave me a card with a name and a number that felt suddenly meaningless. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed at a friend's place across town, sitting on the edge of the couch with all the lights on. Every small sound made me flinch: the hum of the refrigerator, a car passing outside, the soft tick of a clock on the wall. Morning came eventually. Sunlight made everything feel unreal. Like the night had been a bad dream my body hadn't woken up from yet. I went back to the apartment later that day. I don't know why. Maybe part of me needed proof it hadn't happened. Or proof that it had. The place was clean. Quiet. Exactly as I'd left it, except for one thing. The bathroom window was closed. Locked. From the inside. I stood there for a long time staring at it, my reflection pale and hollow in the glass. I checked the latch again and again. There was no way it could have closed on its own. I moved out 2 days later. Didn't pack everything. Just what I could carry. Left furniture behind. Left clothes. Left anything that tied me to that place. The landlord didn't ask questions. Just nodded like he'd seen this before. Weeks passed. Then months. Life tried to go back to normal, but something in me didn't. I started sleeping with lights on. I avoided mirrors at night. I hated hallways. Hated closed doors. Sometimes I'd wake up with the unmistakable feeling that someone was standing just out of sight, watching. I told myself it was trauma. Until the night my phone buzzed with a notification. A missed call. No number. Just a voicemail. I almost didn't listen to it. Almost. When I finally did, my blood ran cold. There was no voice. Just breathing. Slow. Uneven. Wet. The same breathing I'd heard in the dark of my apartment. At the very end of the message, barely audible, something brushed the microphone. A soft sound. Like fingers dragging across wood. I deleted the voicemail. Blocked the number. But sometimes late at night when everything is quiet I still feel it, that pressure in the air. That sense of being studied. And I can't shake one final terrifying thought. What if it didn't come from the apartment? What if moving didn't save me at all? What if it just followed me home?